All right, what going on, y'all? Jim Jones supposedly got punked out or slapped side the damn head or something. I bet he had his Michael Jordan tennis shoes on. Let's see what he talking about.
I just was always a wild, loose kid in my neighborhood. I just always went for mine. I maintained myself. I knew how to hustle, and I definitely wasn't no punk.
These little running around like I was brought up. I was brought up toting slammers. Like, so my belt had to be extra tight. You feel me? Like
the first game, my nigga Punch Jim was popping, homie. Capo, I still fuck with you already know. I shout out to Melly and everybody. I still fuck with my in Harlem. It's all good.
There's always been a thin line between hip-hop fame and street respect. And one night in New York, DIGGS made sure Jim Jones learned that lesson firsthand. This wasn't no rumor or internet story. This was one of those moments that spread through every block, every barbershop, every corner where people talk about who's really who in the city. Jim Jones was flying high, Dipset was hot, ballin' was everywhere, and he was walking like Harlem royalty. But the streets of Brooklyn, they didn't bow to nobody. And that's where DIGGS came in, a man whose name already carried fear before he ever dropped a verse. Back then, DIGGS wasn't just a rapper. He was a certified street general. His legend was heavy, ex-con, respected in the projects, known to move like a boss long before the industry even knew his name. When you mentioned DIGGS, people lowered their voice.
When you mention DIGGS, people lower their voice. Those must be some cis-ass niggas, man. And those will be the same dudes praying to God, fearing God, but God told you not to fear nobody but it. You know, let's continue. This dude had a lot of fear, pretty much in a lot of sissies.
He had ties, soldiers, and a code he actually lived by. So when Jim Jones started moving through Brooklyn talking slick and carrying that Harlem energy, people took notice, especially Ra.
I'm from the era where we sold the drugs, we didn't use them per se. That was the quote-unquote.
It all started at a club event in Brooklyn, some type of industry meets street night. Jim Jones pulled up deep, flashing jewels, popping bottles, and letting everybody know Dipset was in the building.
And like I continue to say, a lot of these guys, man, they bounce around, prance around on this tough guy shit like your boy P. Diddy did all through the years, only to get brought down to their knees by two skinny white men with their booty hole hatched all up in the damn air. Just like your boy P. Diddy, man. I'm talking about just expose these guys for the chumps that they really are, that they've been for quite a while. But when you give certain black dudes a little jewelry, a little money, some liquor, and a pistol, well, look here. He'll be hard as a tree outside. Like I say to those two skinny white men, come snatch his ass up. Let's continue.
He had that superstar aura, the shades, the swagger, the whole Harlem vibe. But something about that night just didn't sit right. Folks said Jim's crew got into it with some local guys over seating or bottles, and those local guys just happened to be connected to DIGGS. Within minutes, word reached Ra. And when he arrived, the energy in the room shifted. Witnesses say you could feel it. The music got quieter. People started moving out the way. DIGGS walked in calm but heavy, like someone who didn't need to prove a thing. He looked at Jim Jones and asked him straight up, "You good, homie? You know where you at?" That's when the tone changed. Jim tried to play it cool, but Ra wasn't there for no Hollywood act. He told him, "Ain't no cameras out here. Respect go both ways." Everyone watching knew this wasn't a debate. This was one man checking another. The crazy part? Jim didn't argue. He didn't swing. He didn't bark. He just nodded, tried to diffuse it, and DIGGS turned and walked out like nothing happened. But the silence afterward was loud. people said it felt like watching a superstar realize he's still just a man in another man's city.
You blood from this day on, when you see us throw it up, you be putting way more work in than half these bloods that be out here and things like that. So you the homie now. When you see us throw it up, that's just that.
To really understand why that moment hit so hard, you gotta know who Rod Diggs really was. Born Ronald Herron, he wasn't some rapper trying to act tough. He came from the Gowanus houses in Brooklyn, one of those places where you either make money or get swallowed up. Rod was known in the streets long before his music. By the time he started rapping, he'd already built a name that carried both fear and respect. When he spoke, people listened, and not just because of lyrics. He represented that real old-school street structure that New York had started to lose when fame took over. So when Rod Diggs and Jim Jones crossed paths, it wasn't just a personal issue, it was culture clashing. You had Harlem Flash versus Brooklyn Discipline. Jim was Dipset, colorful, confident, loud. Rod Diggs was Brooklyn, raw, militant, no smiles. And on that night, all that Harlem swagger didn't mean a thing. The story goes that Rod wasn't trying to start beef, he was setting a boundary. Word was, Jim's people disrespected locals, throwing money and attitude like they owned the place. Rod pulled up to remind him, "This ain't your block, this is mine."
They allege that Herron is guilty of racketeering charges for running a drug-dealing operation in the Gowanus housing development where he grew up. They also claim he was involved in 3 murders and 3 attempted murders.
The encounter spread fast because everyone who was there told it the same way. Rod didn't yell, didn't threaten, just checked him calmly in front of everyone. And that calm is what made it legendary. He didn't need noise to command attention. People said Jim's tone changed after that. No more bragging, no more Harlem talk. He knew what time it was. Even though no punches were thrown, the whole situation became street folklore. That was the night Brooklyn humbled Harlem, at least for a moment. After that, whispers started circulating. Jim got pressed by Rod Diggs. He backed down in Brooklyn. Rod Diggs made him respect the ground. Whether exaggerated or not, the story stuck. And once a story like that gets tied to your name in New York, it lives forever. A few years later, when Rod Diggs got caught up in his federal case and ended up serving life, people still brought that moment up like proof of how real he was. They'd say, he was wild, but he stood on business, even against celebs. That encounter became part of Rod's myth, the day he reminded the industry that some fame just don't cross certain lines.
Rod Diggs got 3 life sentences. You heard about this?
I actually seen it on, I think it was on your website yesterday, and I was like, and I feel bad.
Now for Jim Jones, that night was a reality check. Jim's always been a hustler, always been confident, but even he couldn't deny what that moment did to his image in the streets. Harlem still rocked with him heavy, but outside his zone, people started whispering. Every time he'd talk tough in interviews or rap about being outside, fans would drop comments like, "But what about Rod Diggs?" It became that one story people wouldn't let go. What's wild is that Jim never addressed it directly, not once. He never confirmed it, never denied it, and that silence spoke volumes. Because if it wasn't true, you'd expect a man like Jim to set the record straight. But instead, he stayed quiet, maybe realizing some stories are better left alone. Behind the scenes though, those who know Jim say that moment changed how he moved. After that night, he started bringing fewer people to Brooklyn events. He focused more on business and less on the street show. It's almost like Rod's check turned into a wake-up call, reminding him that fame don't erase consequences. Meanwhile, Rod Diggs became a symbol of authentic New York energy. He represented the streets that never chased clout. Even after his conviction, people kept his name alive. Rappers referenced him in songs. Street dudes told stories about how respectful he was when you came correct, and how deadly it could get when you didn't. That balance between fear and respect is what made him different. When documentaries and interviews about old New York started popping up, this story always came back up. The night Rod Diggs humbled Jim Jones. Not because it was beef, but because it showed something real. How ego can get checked when it leaves its neighborhood. For fans, it was deeper than gossip. It was a reminder that the streets ain't something you rent, it's something you belong to. Even now, years later, that one story still floats around every time Jim's name comes up in a conversation about street credibility. Some say it's exaggerated, others swear they saw it with their own eyes. But the message never changes. No matter how famous you get, there's always somebody realer, quieter, and ready to test you if you forget your place. In the end, that night became part of New York hip-hop legend. The night Rod Diggs reminded everybody that the streets don't bend for fame. It wasn't about violence. It wasn't about ego. It was about principle. Rod Diggs didn't press Jim Jones to embarrass him. He did it to keep the code alive. Respect comes before reputation, always. And that's something the new generation needed to see. For Jim, it wasn't a total loss. It was a lesson. Since then, he's evolved into a businessman, a family man, even a motivator. Maybe that moment helped him mature faster, because the old Jim who lived for confrontation started giving way to the version we see now. Calculated, older, wiser. But the streets never forget, and neither do the fans.